Hey there everybody, Joe here. Thanks for tuning in again. So I'm very happy to have finally made a how to paint fire video that is how to paint fire with a paintbrush. So this is how I did it. I needed flames coming out of my Leviathan's mouth, and I didn't want to pull out my air compressor and airbrush and do it that way because I've been wanting to find a way to do it with the paintbrush in order to make a video like this for some time. It's been something that's been requested, but I never answered that question because I hadn't attempted it myself. So I'm very happy to have finally done that. The way I did this is just like with an airbrush, first understanding what makes the look of fire. So I'll just explain it briefly. From my own observation, you have a bunch of overlapping flames. Imagine a single flame. If you light a candle, then what you're going to see is the outer edges of that flame will be brighter than the middle. The reason for that is the same reason if you imagine a sunlit grape. The middle is bright, the outside's a little darker. If you take a water balloon and hold it up in front of the sunlight, the middle will be brighter, the outside will be darker. You're going to see through that very thin wall of whatever's on the outside and see what's in the middle. Whereas on the edge, it's going this way, and you don't see through that nearly as well. With fire, it's the opposite. The outside is where all the light comes from. It's not the middle of a flame that's giving off the light. It's the outer shell of it. So that's just a single flame, but a fire is many flames overlapping each other. So imagine a flame as maybe a type of bubble that's getting moved around and distorted by the air. So it's not round. It's got, any number of shapes, but it typically is a three-dimensional object that is wrapped by edges. If the outer shell is bright and the middle is dark, it's the opposite effect as the water balloon illustration or the grape in the sunlight. The outside is lit up, so wherever you have more of that lit up shell, like the edges that are going this way on that three-dimensional object, that's light behind light behind light. It's all piling up and is going to appear brighter than just that face of it that's very thin. So there's just not as much lit up material there, and that would appear to be the middle of the flame. So to prove my concept, you could light a candle and notice that it's always brighter on the edges no matter which angle you look at it from. You move over to this side, it's still brighter on those edges, but then you look this way, it's still brighter on those edges. I find it easier to make a distorted square shape as opposed to a distorted circle shape. Let me show you what I mean. So let's do an oval shape and then another one here. That might end up looking like a big fireball when I'm done if I make all of those bright edges, but I find it to look more natural if I do that same concept, but just thinking more of a square shape. So I might have one side of the square like this, the other side like this, the other side maybe really distorted. Okay. We're not going to do that. That was a mess up. Like that, and then maybe the other side like that. If I do shapes like that, then it creates these corners that I many times leave open. I don't connect them. And so this is just a systematic way of achieving what I feel are more natural looking shapes. So then if I do that again, I'm going to make some overlap. So let's do another one here, 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 and then let's do another one here, 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 and then another one here and here and here. To me, that's going to end up looking a lot more like fire when it's done. And I know that, you might be thinking right now, well, that just looks like a bunch of scribbly black lines on a whiteboard. But I'm just being honest with you that is my technique in order to achieve this fire right here. Okay, red, yellow, and black is what I'm using for starters. Now, you saw me in the video probably using this magenta. I'm just considering that another form of red. This is like the color of pomegranate juice, it's a very violet kind of red, commonly referred to as magenta. Because of the more violet hue, you'll get not as intense of reds and oranges. So it's your choice what kind of a look you're trying to go for. If you want it to look really, really bright orange and hot, then maybe the red and the yellow is a better choice than the magenta and yellow. I used both. Both of them looked like fire. When I'm adding black to it, I'm doing a bunch of gradients. Those gradients go from black to red to yellow, or the other way, yellow to red to black. I never go straight from black to yellow because that'll make a green that I'm not trying to have in my fire. On a lot of them, I'm not going all the way to yellow, so the darker flames is just black to red, red to black. If I'm doing a dark flame such as some of these that are closer to the outsides of my flame area, then I'm just using red and black a lot of the time because it doesn't look so red when black mixes with it. It dies down to more of a dark orangey, kind of a rusty color. That's the order of the colors. They don't all have to be included. So likewise on the brightest, it might be mostly yellow and just adding a little bit of red. So depending on which part of the fire you're doing, you might be going from a bright yellow edge to just a little bit orange. You might be going from an orange edge to just red. You might be going all the way from yellow to red to black, depending on which part you're doing. When you make edges somewhat but not completely parallel with each other, that really helps with the fiery look. For whatever reason, you'll have this flame is burning right next to it, and those walls will seem to not want to touch each other a lot of the time and create these separations in between, and it just has a cool fireball kind of a look to it when you're able to separate those. That's what I did. Do whatever you want. So let's make another one here, and maybe this one is, maybe the top of the fire burning upward like that, and then maybe another one here. Okay, so now notice that I left some open. So you don't have to close these shapes. These are just, you're visualizing separate shapes that are not overlapping, and then it's time to do the gradients on those shapes. So once I get those gradients done, and the gradients are going to go from the outside to the inside. So this is a shape here, this is the inside. So let me just make these little lines showing, that this is one shape here, and I'm going to make my gradient, and you can make it any brightness that you want to make it. I don't start with the brightest ever because I'm going to pile other shapes, so I just kind of do something in the middle. Maybe it would have been better to start with just the red and the black, do something real dark and then brighten it as I go. I don't know. But wherever I don't have my lines closed, wherever my shape is not closed and I don't have an edge, like here for example, I might just fade to the black and make it disappear. Those edges don't have to connect with each other. And you can see some of that in my fire where I don't connect every edge. A shape might only have two edges. It might just be one here, and then I might just have a gradient that goes, brightest toward the middle, and then dark in the middle, and then back to this edge that's bright again. Alright, so these are my gradients. Now the next thing I want to do is start overlapping layers, but instead of overlapping, that's really hard with the brush. I'm going to have a shape right there. Now that's going to be a flame, and I'm going to put the gradient going this way. Well, so my task is to do that same brighter edge right here, and then blend it to this edge, but I'm just staying within these sharp edges, so it's not real complicated to just keep that my boundary and don't worry about overlapping and trying to work with different color sets at the same time. When this is finished, I'll move over and do where it goes into another zone. And this has its own boundaries, so maybe there's an edge here, maybe an edge here, but I'm going to stay within this area so that I'm only blending one set of colors, because in here, since this is just one layer thick, I've got two overlapping flames here. I want this to be brighter. I want this to be darker, so here I might just be using red on this edge and going to black and then back to red on this edge. And then likewise, if it comes in here and then it goes up here and then up there, these might be a real bright yellow going to the red, back to a bright yellow right there. Bright yellow here, bright yellow right here. So wherever I have two flames thick, I want that to be brighter. This might just be, well, like I said, that would be another red edge if that's a darker flame. Now, you can make a flame brighter and darker in different places, of course, but this is just to separate the tasks so that you don't get overwhelmed. Okay, so then here, I want this to appear brighter than this negative space right here because this is two flames overlapping. So by doing this method, I isolated my tasks. So then I might have more in here, another flame going this way, and then I would make this one task. Here's a triangle. I would do this gradient right here to this gradient, And just that, when that's finished, I move to this one and do it with a darker set of colors. Then if I had one in here, then I've got, look at all of those little sections. That's why it took a while. But by doing it one section at a time, I was able to not get overwhelmed. I didn't draw out every shape all at the same time and then try to find where I was in the midst of that spaghetti. You know, that's the first thing I thought of, looking at all these lines, you know. It can be overwhelming trying to keep track of all that. I found it easier if I isolated my task and was visualizing one little block at a time of intersecting shapes. If I were to draw all the shapes ahead of time and be looking at this big old set of scribbles, then it's going to be hard for me to keep track of what's on top of what and what should be the brightest. But when I'm building it gradually as I go, filling in the color as I build it, rather, is probably a better way to say that, then it allows me to keep track of what is already bright, what already has maybe 2 or 3 flames thick, and then if I'm adding another edge, I know it's got to go even brighter than that. If I'm intersecting 2 flames, then that intersection is the brighter edge, so that everything stays looking like overlapping shapes and I can maintain that depth. Alright, so once I had that structure built, then I just picked my area to add pure white to, where I had most of the yellow in here. I always try to pick a hot spot when I'm painting fire. An area that I want to look like is the hottest area, and so I'll put it on top of where I already have yellow, being careful to keep my white that I'm putting on surrounded by the yellow. So if I have a stroke of yellow, I'm going to put white on top of that and make it smaller so that the white is surrounded by the yellow. I always want pure white to be surrounded by the color that I'm trying to brighten, because that creates the effect of something glowing. When the middle is pure white but there's the colored halo around it, that's the look you get when a camera is overexposed, because it can't produce the brightness of the color all by itself, so it just goes to pure white, which is the brightest thing that the screen can produce. That's exactly the steps I follow to produce these flames, and so I hope you find that helpful. Now I'm going to look at comments from last week's video. Justin Pollack says, "Hi Michelangelo." Very flattering compliment. I don't compare myself to Michelangelo. Thank you very much, and I just became a patron on your page today. Can't wait to see more videos. All right, cool. Thank you very much for the encouragement, and I'm very happy that you joined the patrons. On Patreon, we do have a page, patreon.com/MuralJoe, and if you are willing to pledge $1 a month, then I post a free monthly video there, just as a thank you for those who choose to do that. DTH Rocket, thank you as well for the same thing, joining Patreon. Man, I am so happy and thankful for those of you that do that. I've talked to my brother Ben, who edits these videos, and I'm like, Ben, we got a little bit higher budget now, so I want you to really focus on this part and spend more time here, you know. So thanks for helping us make these free videos. Abby M says, "I learned so much in your full lessons. Thank you for the shout out." You can get those lessons at learn.muraljoe.com. That it's not just about copying and painting, it's learning everything there is. Seems the more you learn, there's always more. Thanks, Joe. Very good point, Abby. Definitely. The more you learn, there's always more. That is definitely true. So that is not to say that we're actually learning all there is. Definitely not. But just like I'm trying to understand the shapes of these flames in order to paint them better, trying to understand the movement and why certain shapes happen, that's definitely what has helped me along in my progression. The Clouds Have Eyes says, I'm going to paraphrase this, is saying that the moonlight is cold, and if you have a sensitive thermometer and measure the temperature in the moonlight on a full moon, then it will be noticeably colder than if you move out of the moonlight and measure the temperature again. I'm totally going to try that. I'm very skeptical that what you're saying is true, but hey, you know, experiment will show. JK's Always Learning says, "Sharing is truly a blessing for those who can't paint as well. I've designed and done several projects for my Messianic congregation and am truly humbled by the opportunity to serve others." That is an impressive attitude. Thank you for sharing that. 82CETO. "I would like to see how you paint the castle. Thank you for sharing your knowledge because I like your painting style so much." Well, thank you very much for that compliment. I'm sorry to say that there's not going to be a castle in this. This is only rocks. I'm gonna break those apart and make them look more like just cliffs. going up. I hate to disappoint. It would be cool to have a castle, but I just want it to look like fishermen on some wild shore. Claude Ballholes. Awesome job, Joe. Keep up the great work. Thank you very much. Even at 50, a young whippersnapper educates me. I've learned to use science in my art, and your work has helped tremendously. As soon as I get the okay from my wife, I will become a patron. Happy wife, happy life. God bless. Now that is the truth. And thank you very much for that nice encouragement and the humble attitude. That's very nice of you. Now, if you don't know already, I do have videos for sale on my site, learn.muraljoe.com. So if you've wondered what's the difference between those videos and all of the content that I post for free, well, I just reserved those videos that I sell for my site. I always put a lot of effort into giving accurate explanations and things, and that's the approach I take to all of my instructional videos, is to provide answers. That's the number one priority, more than just showing technique or how to accomplish one painting. I want you to have answers to why things look the way they look. Those videos I sell. I put everything else that I can think of for free on YouTube. So if you're unable to afford those videos, then I hope you continue to enjoy the free content. I put my best into both, and I very much appreciate your support either way. So once again, thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again next time.